All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here for our reapplication webinar that will highlight our returning student housing application for the 2025-2026 academic year. We're really excited to have you here and to kind of answer your questions or whatever information that you need to learn about. Before we get into things and as people are trickling in, we'll just do a couple of housekeeping items. So we do have both the chat and the question and answer box available below. Please feel free to submit questions throughout the presentation, knowing that we might cover some of them. And so we will try our best to either write a response to you in the moment, or if it's a really good question, we will verbally answer it at the end. We also will have plenty of time at the end for any questions. So if you do have, something that comes up right at the end, you'll have the opportunity to have those answered aloud by the group here. And we will also, like you probably hopefully got a notification earlier, we are recording this, so hopefully this recording will be made available to you by the end of the week, early next week at the latest. So it'll be available on our website and on the Division of Student Affairs YouTube page, so you can go back and recap anything that we say here if you do need any additional kind of resources or just want to kind of refresh yourself of anything that we said tonight. So while we get into things and as people are continuing to join us, we'll just kind of go through our quick agenda for the evening. So first we'll start off with some introductions so you kind of know who is in the room here and on your screen. Then we'll go through our full reapplication process for the next academic year, which will go through the timeline, all of the steps that take to complete that application, our cancellation timeline, some exciting perks and incentives that we have for this upcoming year, and our rolling reapplication. And then finally, we will go through our residence hall overview and eligibility for the students that will be completing the application. And then in kind of a bonus content piece, we will be going through some off-campus housing resources. So at the end, if you hear all the great information and say, oh, maybe on-campus housing isn't for me, we'll have an opportunity to talk about that. And then lastly, it'll be followed by our question and answer session. All right, so to get started here, we'll do some just kind of quick introductions. This is primarily our assignments team is on the call. My name is Kaylee McDonald. I'm the Associate Director of Housing Assignments and Communications. So I manage the team and all of our processes as it relates to applying for housing and getting a spot on campus. And I will pass it to Delilah.
Everyone. I'm Delilah Brown. I am the Assistant Director for Housing Assignments. So I handle also the processes with housing assignments and also billing. And I will handle off to Shamira.
Good afternoon, everyone, or good evening. My name is Shamira James. I'm the Marketing and Communications Coordinator for Housing and Res Life. I send out all of the long emails that you all get about our processes, and I also handle our social media and all of our marketing efforts. And I will hand it off to Lauren.
Hi, I'm Lauren. So I'm one of the housing assignment specialists. I handle the housing assignments, obviously, and giving you guys a space along with Sam. I will hand it off to Sam.
Yeah, I'm Sam or Samantha Lewis. I'm also one of the housing assignments specialists. Work with Lauren pretty much hand in hand. Lauren is more of our key point in the Reapp situation. I'm more of our person for the new student app. So Lauren is your girl.
And then not pictured on the screen, but also present here, I'll let Mason introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. Mason Henderson. Just happy to be on the call. I'm the Director of Housing. So I work with our Director of Residence Life and our Executive Director for Housing and Residence Life to provide some of the leadership for our overall Housing and Residence Life offerings, of which this wonderful assignments team is one part of. So happy to share with you a lot of our processes and a lot of things that we are working on for the upcoming year for our reapplying students.
And just want to kind of highlight, we are just a small portion of the Housing and Residence Life team. So I do want to kind of acknowledge that we are able to help you with your reapplication needs, but there's a lot of other people kind of working with us and behind us throughout the academic year. And I just want to highlight kind of our information. So our office is located in Anderson Hall, which is a first-year residence hall on campus, and we're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And you can always contact us by phone, email, and we do even have a live chat that runs every afternoon, Monday through Friday. So there's plenty of ways you can get in contact with us if you have any questions after this presentation. Awesome. So just wanted to kind of highlight some quick information of just what it is like living on campus. So the first thing that is really important is that all of these students that are on campus have a certain housing classification. So that essentially just aligns with the number of semesters that you've been eligible to live on campus. It does not necessarily connect to the number of credits you have. So if you're a student, or if you are a student that, you know, has taken a lot of classes or maybe came in with AP or IB credits, and you are maybe a sophomore but came in as a junior, you would still be classified as a sophomore in our system because you've only lived on campus for 1 year. So just want to kind of highlight that if that's confusing, want to kind of acknowledge that. And then for this year, approximately 72% of our sophomores and 24% of our upper class students did live on campus. So a lot of people, you know, after their first year do decide to stay on campus. And then we see that number kind of drop off a little bit with those upper class students as they decide to study abroad, do kind of other things, and move off campus, obviously, as they continue their journey at AU. I do like to also kind of give a shout out to our residence life staff. So each of our residence halls have resident assistants on each floor, or sometimes 2 per floor, and professional community directors that are kind of supervising each building. So these are live-in staff that are available to your students 24/7 to kind of assist you, if you have a crisis or are in need, but also there to kind of host really fantastic programming, and also available to kind of create that community life on campus. And then one of the big things for me that I like to really highlight here is that signing up for on-campus housing is for the full 2025-2026 academic year. So it is for both the fall and the spring semesters. So if you are a student, though, that you're thinking of studying abroad in the spring, or if you're even studying abroad this fall, there are a list of exemptions that, you know, if you are studying abroad, for example, that would let you out of the housing contract. But for just kind of any other student, you should expect to live on campus for both semesters. And then in the housing license agreement, you can find that full list of exemptions if you would like to learn more information about that.
The reapplication process, and then Lauren is going to take the next one.
Hello, everyone. So we're going to go over the housing reapplication timeline so you all know what to expect. This year, the housing application and roommate matching opened on February 10th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. All students are encouraged to submit an application even if they are unsure about living on campus. There is no cost to apply, and submitting an application makes sure that students remain eligible should they decide to live on campus later. A fee is only incurred once a student selects a room, so applications can be submitted at any time through the AU housing portal, which features a convenient button right on the homepage. Roommate matching is an optional component of the process as well, but it is highly recommended. It allows students to select their preferred roommates ahead of time. The student with the earliest time slot in the group will be able to select a room on behalf of everyone. There are also incentives for applying early. Students who apply by February 23rd, this past Sunday, will receive a $100 promotional account in the fall, and those who apply by March 9th will receive a $50 promotional account in the fall. We'll touch more on this in more detail later in the presentation. Now let's talk about room selection. This is the exciting part where students can choose a space they want to live in next year. So we have 2 phases of room selection. Sophomores will select rooms between March 19th and the 21st with priority given to them since they are guaranteed housing. And then the upper division students will select rooms from the following week from March 24th to March 26th. Each student who submits a housing application will receive a time slot indicating when they can log into the housing portal to select their room. If a student joins a roommate group, the earliest time slot in the group will be able to select a room for everyone. We get a lot of questions like, can I get an earlier time slot? And unfortunately, the answer is no. The time slots are randomly generated in a lottery system and we can't adjust them, so the best option is to join a roommate group. Following these selection periods, the process transitioned into rolling reapplication, where applications will be reviewed weekly until June 18th, which is also the final day students may self-select a room. Another key date to keep in mind is March 31st, which is the last day students can cancel their housing without a fee. Beginning April 1st, a $1,000 cancellation fee will apply, increasing each month thereafter. We will be sending email reminders, but we know this date sneaks up on us, so please make sure to look out for this email. This timeline is designed to give students flexibility while making sure they have access to the best available housing options, so applying early is highly encouraged to take advantage of the incentives and secure a preferred space. Now we're gonna outline the 3 main steps in this process and what it looks like. So again, step 1 is completing the housing application, which opened on February 10th. The first step in the application is confirming contact information, emergency contact details, and filling out the roommate matching lifestyle questionnaire. The questionnaire and roommate profiles are important because they help students find compatible roommates. It's important that students complete this section carefully as it influences roommate matching. Next, students will be prompted to sign the housing license agreement, which is the HLA. The HLA functions as the university's housing contract, outlining important policies, kind of similar to a lease agreement with a landlord. We strongly recommend students reading through this carefully before signing. Students will then have the option to indicate interest or opt into the following: Grad Guard Renters Insurance. This is a new addition to the housing application. While it's not required, students can purchase renters insurance directly through the housing application, or they may choose another provider or opt out entirely. Housing accommodations, students seeking medical accommodations can apply through the Academic Support and Access Center. Gender-based housing considerations requests can be made through the Center for Diversity and Inclusion. All gender housing, while all residence halls are co-ed, students opting into all gender housing are choosing a gender neutral living environment, meaning their roommate will also be gender neutral. And affinity housing or learning community interests. Students interested in these specialized housing options can express their interest here. We'll go into more details on these communities in the next few slides, but for now, it's important to note that completing the application is the first crucial step in the process, and we encourage students to take their time to review each section carefully before submitting.
So as Lauren discussed before, we have all gender housing and gender-based housing considerations. So this slide kind of serves the purpose of explaining what the differences are. So all gender housing allows students to live with other students who have also opted in to all gender housing, regardless of gender, gender identity, gender expression, or sex assigned at birth. It doesn't require any additional application. You simply check a box to opt in within the housing application. While on the other hand, we have gender-based housing considerations, or GBHC, and it's a process for students who have specific considerations based on their gender identity. These could include like access to gender-neutral bathrooms, assistance with seeking trans-inclusive housing and environment, or roommates. This does require an additional form through the Center for Diversity and Inclusion, and for a priority deadline was February 24th ahead of selection. So we do encourage you to get that in as soon as possible if you do want to be considered. And CDI, Center for Diversity and Inclusion, and HRL-US work together to ensure students have access to their requested considerations.
Thanks for that, Sam. I will now talk about the affinity housing that we have here at AU. So our first affinity housing is our Black affinity housing, which is located in Roper Hall. It was established in 2020 to create intentional community for people to celebrate the Black experience here at American University, and connect and build their student experience around their identity. I would like to note that it is open to all class levels. That means as long as you are an AU resident and you are living on campus, you have the opportunity to join Black affinity housing, and you have the opportunity to join this amazing open community. Students interested in affinity housing simply make the selection on their housing application. And then we have community leadership reach out to confirm their selection and kind of guide them through that process on joining those affinity housing. This year's our community director for belonging and basic needs supports oversees our Black affinity housing, and that is our wonderful, amazing Shy Prentice. She's an amazing resource to have for getting into the Black affinity housing. Next, in addition to that, we have 2 new affinity housings coming on campus. So our first generation affinity housing and our LGBTQIA plus affinity housing. First gen affinity is geared towards those looking for additional support, resources, mentorship, and connections with our first gen students. Like I mentioned, is open to all class levels. So while our first years are the first to experience this as an offering, our upper class student division can also select into this housing option. And this year it will be in Leonard Hall. And then our LGBTQIA plus affinity housing celebrates all of those identities with a supportive community and to be able to connect, grow, and thrive with all the available programming and resources that are made available to them. Also open to all class levels and will be housed in McDowell Hall. So again, with all of the affinity housing, it is an opt-in option. Students can identify their interest on their housing application, and their community leader will reach out to them to provide support and facilitate that process and getting them into those community affinity spaces. And so then I would like to transition to Lauren for roommate matching.
Back. Okay, so we're moving on to the second step in the housing process, which is roommate matching, also opened on February 10th. While this step is optional, it's highly recommended for students who want to choose their roommates in advance. Roommate groups can range from just 2 people to as many as 6. There are 2 ways for students to find a roommate. Students can browse the suggested roommate. The housing system uses the roommate questionnaire completed during step 1 to suggest potential matches based on compatibility percentage. Think of it like a matchmaking system that pairs students with similar living preferences. And then another way is students can search for a specific person. If a student already knows who they want to live with, they can search for a person using their screen name, AUID number, or my AU username. A few important things to keep in mind when forming roommate groups is gender classification must match. Students who opt into all gender housing can only match with others who have also opted in. Otherwise, students will need to opt out to match with a specific person. Housing community must match. If a student is part of Honors, DC Impact, AU Compass, Affinity Housing, or general population, they can only match with students within their assigned community. Only one group leader. One student should serve as a group leader. If multiple students try to be the leader, it will prevent the group from forming. And then no duplicate commitments. If a student is already in a different group, they won't be able to join a new one until they leave the existing group. So this is kind of what the student would see in their housing portal. They will immediately see key housing information, including their assigned housing community. From there, they can begin the roommate matching process. Students have 2 ways to find a roommate. The first way is to view top roommate matches. The system suggests potential roommates based on compatibility percentage from the lifestyle questionnaire. Students can click into each profile to see details like wake up times, cleanliness preferences, and study habits to find a good match. Or they can search by details. If a student already knows who they want to live with, they can search by AUID number, screen name, or my AU username to find them directly. Once a student finds someone they want to live with, they simply send an invitation to create a roommate group. The invited student will then log in and accept the request to finalize the group. Group members will have up to 5 days from the invitation date to accept or decline the invite. It's a simple process, but make sure that the group leader is the only one sending invites. All group members are in the same community and no one is already committed to another roommate group. While some students connect with potential roommates through social media or other messaging platforms, the housing portal also provides an easy in-house system for finding and confirming roommates.
3 is the magic number. This is the third step of the housing application. So it's room selection. Time slots are randomized for each classification, and it's from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. daily. So sophomore time slots are March 19th through 21st, and then upperclassmen are the 24th through the 26th. So the roommate with the earliest time slot can select the room for the group. We recommend that you like whoever has the earliest time slot does the selecting for the group, because then you have the best more options for you. And they must assign each group member to a bed space before confirming. When your time slot starts, you'll be able to see all the buildings that you're eligible for. I don't know if we have, there we go. I couldn't see the transition. So you're able to see all of the buildings that are available to choose from. Once you find your building, you select location, and then you'll be able to select from individual rooms in that building. And say you like to be on a higher floor, your lower floor, for whenever you have those fire drills, you don't want to climb down 7 flights of stairs. You can kind of filter by floor. And once you find your room, it's just like you're shopping online, you add to cart, and when you will then be prompted to then assign each group member a bed in that space. Do note that if the group members exceed the amount of number of beds, you will need to add another room to cart. So if you're in a group of 4 and you select 2, you would need to select 2 double occupancy rooms and assign those beds. So that's how you would select with a group. But if you are selecting without a group, you'll be able to view potential roommates before selecting the other half of the space. And we do recommend that you review all of your options during this phase instead of selecting a completely empty room, because we will end up consolidating and combining these students who are in the half-filled spaces. So it's in your best interest to just kind of control your own destiny and see, find whoever you match with the best, and just be like, okay, like they have a current half-occupied room. Me and them have 80% match. They seem chill. Let me choose them. So we recommend you do that, so you choose who you're gonna be living with.
Great, thank you, Sam. So I'd like to highlight our cancellation timeline. While we want everyone who selects to live on campus to live with us, we do understand life happens and you may have to cancel your housing for whatever reason. So our first priority deadline, or our first deadline, cancel with no fee, is March 31st by 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. Our second is April 1st with a cancellation fee of $1,000. Our third is May 1st at $1,500. And then it goes to June 1st at $2,000 for cancellation fee, July 1st for $2,500 cancellation fee. And then by August 1st, kind of around the same time when tuition is due for the fall semester, the cancellation fee equals out to be the full cost for fall housing. All cancellations are submitted through the housing portal, so students can log in and indicate that they would like to cancel, and then our team will facilitate that process on getting that canceled for you. If students receive an assignment after April 1st, there will be a 72-hour kind of buffer period to decide if you'd like to live on campus before the cancellation fees go into effect. And so yeah, from there, I will transition to Kaylee to talk about the housing perks and incentives.
Awesome, thank you. So we did allude to a couple of exciting kind of housing perks at the beginning. So kind of 2 perks that I want to highlight here. One is laundry credits. So any student that maintains their housing assignment kind of post-selection and moves into the residence halls will receive $35. So it will either be $35 in laundry credit, so they can do laundry on campus, or if you are a student that is residing in the frequency apartment, since there is laundry in unit already, you would receive that $35 in the form of Grubhub money. So once you move in the fall, that kind of would be added to your account, and you'd use that normally, however you would like to use those. And then really new for this year is another promotional account. So like Lauren mentioned earlier, we have kind of two kind of priority deadlines for this promotional account. So if you applied by this past Sunday, you will get $100 credit if you maintain your assignment and move in the fall. If you haven't applied yet, do not worry. You have until March 9th to get your application in, and then you'll just receive $50. So $100 if you've already applied by Sunday, and then if you apply between now and March 9th, you'll receive $50 upon move-in in the fall. And this a promotional account will be kind of separate from your Eagle Bucks and dining dollars, but will still kind of function very similarly where you can use it in on-campus kind of venues, so you can have a little bit extra cash. But it's just kind of a way for us to kind of thank students for living on campus and to kind of, incentivize and have the perks for living on campus and maintaining that community. All right. And then before we kind of move over to our next section, I want to highlight the rolling reapplication period. So we just highlighted kind of our 3-step process. So if you get to the end of the 3rd step and you say, oh, I'm not really sure if any of the housing options that are there for me, or I don't have anything that I really am super excited about, you'll be able to kind of go right into the rolling reapplication process. So this is essentially right after selection through June 18th. It allows you to go into the portal and to check to see kind of if there are any spaces that are available that you would rather be in. This is also for students that do have a space. So if you put yourself in a space and then, in a month after you select, you'd rather live in a different building or a different community, you can continue to search for new spaces throughout that time period. So we do email students, kind of like what we were talking about earlier. We email students that are waiting for assignments prior to that cancellation fee increase, since we do see more students cancel before that fee increases. So once they drop their assignments, you're able to go right in and snatch that up and then change your assignment at no fee. If a student, again, does cancel their assignment, their space does become available immediately. So if you are making a transition from one space to another, just be confident that that's the space that you want, because you can't necessarily go back to your old space once you drop that.
Now we will get into the residence hall overview and the eligibility. So let's just take a look at our campus map real quick. As most of you guys probably know, over here on our left is our LA Quad, or South Campus, as more people like to call it. Well, LA Quad is Let's Anderson Quad. So we have Anderson Hall, Centennial Hall, Let's Hall, and Roper Hall. And then over, I don't know where the next transition goes. If we go, okay, it goes to East Campus. So over East Campus, traditionally sophomore housing is Constitution Hall, Duber Hall, and Federal Hall. You see those little blue dots. And then next transition, we have North Campus, and the hit everyone loves, Cassell Hall, Hughes Hall, Leonard Hall, and McDowell Hall over in those dark blue, I guess. And our last one is Nebraska Hall, and then the Frequency Apartments, which aren't pictured, but they're over in Tenleytown, right near the metro station, or by like the Whole Foods, if that location means anything to you. But this is what our campus looks like.
Okay. All right, so when we talk about the different residence hall spaces that we have on campus, I'm sure you're all very familiar with them. You've walked by them several times. I like to say that every hall has their own little story, but there are some kind of general themes. What you'll notice in each hall is that all floors are co-ed, meaning that on the floors themselves, you can expect to live with students of various genders. And then some of the other commonalities that they have, all the halls will have kitchen areas. We'll kind of talk about the differences because it kind of gets a little different, kind of hall type to hall type, but they'll all have kitchen areas, community lounges, and laundry facilities. And those laundry facilities, community lounges, and kitchens are located on each floor. For the kind of more communal spaces and the restrooms, they are upkept and maintained by our housekeeping team here on the university. They do daily work in all the halls, and then especially during our longer breaks, like winter break, they're able to go into various units and take care of those as well. And we love our housekeeping team. If you would like to learn more about the virtual halls, if you would like to learn more about the halls, you can visit the virtual tours on our website. They are kind of the best way to kind of picture yourself in the space. They give you a full, either you can get a bird's eye view of the hall, or you can kind of do like a dollhouse and kind of put yourself into the space. There's dimensions, and there's also fun points of interest so you can learn more about the space and different things you can rent to make your home at AU. We can go to the next slide. So when we look at our sophomore halls, those are our spaces that will be available to our rising class. So as you finish up your first year here at AU, you will be able to select from starting from our traditional style halls. These are the ones that most of you are probably in right now. These are rooms with communal bathrooms, and depending on which hall you live in. So for example, if you are a resident of Leonard or McDowell right now, they have the pod style bathrooms. If you reside in Letts or Anderson Hall, you probably seen the gendered bathroom spaces, but they have those, and they also have the communal lounges on each floor. Those lounges include obviously a kitchenette area and various like study spaces as well. We've gotten a lot of questions about the single room aspects, and I will say that we will discuss some of that a little bit later, kind of in greater detail, but please feel free to keep dropping those questions. In the single rooms, this means a double as a single, so we will kind of go into that more, but the halls that it is available in for the upcoming academic year will be Leonard and McDowell, and all of these halls will have double as single occupancy, but also double, and in McDowell Hall you can also expect some triple occupancy as well. And then if you are able to, we also have suite style spaces as well. These are very popular. Like Sam said, Cassell is kind of like the, hottest thing since sliced bread. So everyone kind of wants that. But in Cassell, you can expect to see 2 to 3 shared bedrooms with a living area that can house about 4 to 6 people. Centennial Hall, which is on the south side of campus, is a double occupancy space that is connected by a bathroom. And then you have our suite style spaces over in East Campus. And again, it's the, shared bedroom with a private bathroom, kind of obviously that differs from our traditional style halls. And then when we get into our upper division, so essentially, again, we kind of see the traditional style that's available to people. Just to kind of recap, again, you have either a choice of a pod style or a gendered bathroom and various communal spaces. Again, we will talk about the singles. We will talk about the single room availability in a little bit. I know everyone's waiting to see that. And again, we have that suite style. And something I didn't mention in the last one is that Cassell, like I said, is the hottest thing since sliced bread. We know that a lot of people want it. That being said, what we encourage students to do, and this will come out in email format as well, but I do want to verbalize this to you all, that when you're selecting, please be sure that you have a plan in case Cassell fills up super quickly. We suggest sitting down with your roommate or roommates and creating a tiered list of places you want to go. When you go into the housing portal to select, you're going to be a little bit nervous and you might freak out if you don't see any spots. And we encourage you to keep that momentum and go forward in selecting your next space so that you're not stuck. Throughout the summer, spaces can become available, but we don't want you to not select a space when it is your time. So make sure you have your tiered list ready. But we've reviewed suite style. Again, that's going to be Cassell Hall and, Duber and all that stuff. The biggest difference that's available for our upper division students is that you all will be able to select from apartment style spaces. So this is that Nebraska Hall and the Frequency Apartments. The apartments will have a private bathroom, living areas, and kitchen, and there are shared communal spaces within the apartments themselves. In Nebraska, you have single occupancy rooms, and these can house up to anywhere from 2 to 4 people, like within the apartment themselves. And with the Frequency, again, that's kind of like our off-campus housing. It is off-campus, but it's obviously still in partnership with us. It is in Tenleytown, and that is, again, that 2 to 4 person apartments with private bathroom, laundry, and kitchenette. And there's also other, various perks there, on-site gym, study rooms, parking, and you just have a closer access to ways to get off of campus, as we find that most of our upper division students, again, are going for those internships and things like that. So, yeah.
Awesome. So we have hit the time to talk about the double as singles. I know that's a new offering and I've seen a lot of questions come up in the chat. So I wanted to kind of just take a moment to pause and talk about this offering. So double as single, it's pretty self-explanatory, but in case we want to just kind of highlight it again, it is a double occupancy space. So a space that is built for 2 people, but we will only have 1 resident in the space. We will be offering options to all class levels. So in this period, it is going to be available for both sophomores and upper division students. And then as well as our incoming first years as well. But we wanted to kind of highlight that for you all here. So there will be sections of multiple floors in those buildings that Shamira highlighted, Leonard and McDowell, that will have rooms dedicated specifically as doubles, as singles. So essentially on the website, we will list kind of where those floors are and where those rooms will exist. And kind of, you didn't see it here, but within the portal and during our room selection process, our team is constantly updating the availability of certain bed spaces within all of the residence halls. So like Shreya mentioned, if Cassell gets really full, you won't have to click through all of the pages to select Cassell. You can actually see it right on the landing page to see how many, our general availability for that specific hall. And we will do the same thing with the double as single rooms. So you won't be, scouring each of the floors to try to find this one space. We'll kind of list out some of the different kind of needs throughout the different halls. It is first come, first served through room selection. So like we have kind of mentioned multiple times, all of our time slots are randomized. This is just to give students the ability to really just kind of, luck of the draw in that situation. So if you are really hoping to get one of these double as single rooms, I do recommend looking at your time slot and kind of having a backup plan if you don't get this one. Where else would you like to live? If you would like to live with roommates, if you would not, kind of, et cetera, et cetera. And then I know we kind of have had some questions about students with single room accommodations. So any true single occupancy space is still being held for students with approved accommodation through our Academic Support and Access Center. So these double as single rooms are really for students that maybe don't need an accommodation and just want to live alone. But students that do have a medical need should still use the Academic Support and Access Center as the resource to receive that accommodation. In the instance of if you're a sophomore, you're guaranteed your housing. And if you're an upper class, you're not guaranteed housing, but we would work with ASAC if you are able to secure a spot on campus. And I'm just going to check to see quickly if there's any specific questions about the double as single.
Kaylee, while you're looking, I will say we've had some in the chat and some in the question and answer, so not everyone can see all the questions that we're getting, but one good one from the chat to the panelists here was just about the need for double as singles and how this sort of works in an overall philosophy. It is not going to restrict our housing offers in a way that we wouldn't normally see in a normal year. So we had a good question in the chat, for example, saying, well, hey, if you're reserving more rooms for this double as single occupancy, isn't that bringing your total bed count down? And the answer is yes, but it's a pretty articulate formula that we're using and predictive model that we're using, looking at our class sizes and seeing how we can offer this responsibly. So we're not, for example, further limiting upper division housing or the apartment style housing. So a lot of that is kind of on the back end of our calculation with which buildings we're offering this in. And these are buildings where, historically we may have had some more vacancy than others, where we have offered some. Leonard and McDowell are both two of our newly renovated buildings, so they're wonderful, but where we know that there will be an interest in singles versus, Nebraska Hall, which is an apartment style and already has, single occupancy bedrooms in it. So I just want to clarify that, Kayla. You've probably found a question by now, but this is certainly not, this is a new initiative for us. And a lot of it is driven by the fact that we have a little bit of overstock right now. And so we're able to kind of articulate that and responsibly offer that. We anticipate these will be highly sought after. We're not offering hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these. I think that should be said just kind of generally to cool things off a little bit for folks. Because again, we want to make sure that we're maintaining the availability for all of our students across different buildings, especially sophomores and upper division when we have so many different buildings to offer.
Exactly. And I know people are asking how many we'll have. We will list out kind of roughly how much of the floors will be available on the website. So definitely make sure that you're checking our website and in the portal before you select. And like I mentioned, throughout the selection process, we will kind of say, if we have specific units available on certain floors, we will kind of list that out. So you're, again, not just kind of going back and forth between pages and floors, trying to find a double, a single if potentially you'd run out. So please keep an eye on that, and we'll continue to update those items as we get closer to selection. All right. So we've really touched on most of this time our reapplication process and our on-campus housing options. And I just wanted to take a couple of moments to highlight some of our off-campus housing resources. This is available to any student at AU, not just undergraduates, but it's available to graduate students. I know I've used these resources in the past as well, but wanted to kind of take a moment to highlight what other things our office is available or has available for you. So just kind of general off-campus housing. If you're a student, you probably know most of this information, but obviously AU is located in Ward 3 near Tenleytown, also near Friendship Heights, Spring Valley, and Cathedral Heights neighborhoods. Most students do live typically within that Tenleytown, Cathedral Heights area, or kind of a little bit further out, Van Ness Cleveland Park or Glover Park in Georgetown. And then 69% of students who do live off campus do live in some sort of apartment. So just kind of some general statistics of if you're looking for off-campus accommodations, this is kind of typically where we see our students living. I always like to highlight just some different factors to consider when you're thinking about living off campus. So the first one is location and proximity. So thinking about, is it walkable to AU, or does it have access to easy transportation, a bus, a metro bus, or the metro to get directly to AU? Also thinking about if that location is access to transportation to get to other places. So think about the places that are important in your life. Is it the grocery store? Is it the bank? Is it restaurants? Think about what you're kind of doing now and where you would like to go. Also think about if you were going to have an internship. Where is that internship located and how would you get there? And kind of plan that out before you kind of commit to a spot. And then, like I mentioned, just kind of thinking about the proximity to those different necessities that you might need on a day-to-day basis living off campus. Also think about cost. So what's your monthly budget? So include, rent in that budget, obviously, any utilities, but also think about any food costs, transportation costs, etc. If you are an undergraduate student that is enrolled full-time, the UPass can really help offset some of those transportation costs by taking the metro or the metro buses. So that's a great way to offset some of those costs if you are utilizing those resources. Also kind of ask yourself if you're okay sharing a room or an apartment, both of which can reduce the costs of renting off campus. So if you really want to have a private room, but maybe you share the apartment with a roommate, think about how that can offset the cost. Also ask yourself if the rent includes any utilities or amenities costs. So what, is on top of that base rent that you would have to be expected to pay an additional fee each month. And then also when you're kind of going into the application process, is there a security deposit? What does the application fee look like? Things like that. What is non-refundable? Versus what is refundable when you leave at the end of your lease term? So these are all kind of costs to consider because a lot of it can add up upfront. And then I just like to highlight some kind of other considerations. So what are you looking for an off-campus rental? So, kind of make a list of priorities of like non-negotiable. So when you go to see an apartment, is it important that it has on-site laundry or in-unit laundry? Which one is important to you? Is it important to have updated unit or updated appliances? Is it important for you to have a private bedroom? Do you really want to have extra amenities in your building? Really think about what you value. I'll just use an example. I really value a lot of natural light. So when I was touring apartments, if I found that the bedroom had no light, I really couldn't see myself living here. So really, things as small as that can really make a difference in how you're approaching your search and looking for a place to live. Also think about what you would look for in a potential roommate. So if you are thinking about living with someone else, ask yourself, are you looking for someone to cohabitate with, someone that, keeps a similar schedule or has a similar lifestyle, or are you looking for a best friend? So think about kind of what you're looking for in terms of who you want to share your space with. And then also, really look at what the lease looks like. So when you get that document, I know there can sometimes be really long. I know sometimes it can be up to 70 pages. I know mine was. But look at that lease and see, is it a 12-month lease? Is it month to month? What is your option when the lease is up? What is your options for subletting, especially if you're a student that's thinking about going abroad at any point? What are your options to kind of get out of the lease is essentially what you would want to look for, and make sure if you do have questions that you're asking those up front. Now I'll highlight just kind of a couple of off-campus listing sites. So we do have an off-campus housing site. It's run in partnership with apartments.com. And one of the reasons why we really like to highlight this site is that all of the apartments and the landlords that submit to our site are submitting with the intention that it will be advertised to students and people a part of the AU community. And also all of the people provide a basic business license, which is required to rent in DC. So we ensure that that paperwork is all set, but all of the active listings are available for you to search by either map, or you can even just search by the listing in your price range, location, or other criteria throughout the kind of different portal. And then also on this site, you can also search for roommates. So again, very similar to like a match.com situation. You can kind of upload a little photo and a bio, and it would be available only to other people that would be looking for roommates as well. So again, the site is, you have to log into it. So it's only really available for AU students to log in and see those resources. If you are old-fashioned like I am, there are some other kind of resources that are not affiliated to AU. I'll start from the bottom. The Facebook groups are very much popular still. Usually kind of sublet Facebook groups are very popular in the DC community, so definitely try to check that out. Going to apartments.com just in general to see kind of the different apartments that are available to you. And then very simply, if you're just looking for a place to start your kind of off-campus housing journey, start with Google Maps. So search by neighborhood, see what apartments are in the area, and then you can kind of go from there and utilize another resource to see, if they have any units available. And then just some general tips. Typically recommend looking to start looking for apartments about 90 days prior to your move-in date. So if you're looking in August, that would put you around May or so. You'll also want to familiarize yourself with DC tenant rights in the Office of Tenant Advocate. I like to say DC is fantastic for tenants if you know your rights. So study up, kind of understand what your right is as a renter and what your landlord should be providing in these rights. I like to mention also a lot of buildings, especially post-COVID, a lot of buildings offer virtual tours or have the kind of ability to walk you through virtually. So again, if you are someone that's studying abroad or not able to come, to DC in the summer to tour apartments, just ask to see if they would be willing to do a virtual tour with you, or if they have those resources available, so you can tour the apartment beforehand. And then once you do find a place and once you move in, be a good neighbor. AU does have a good neighbor policy that's run through the Dean of Students office, and a little orientation of how to be a good neighbor to those kind of around you once you do move off campus. So those are resources that are available to you kind of at any time. All right. So we have made it to our question and answer section, and I know we've been working very hard typing some answers, but if Mason, maybe you want to call out some questions that you saw or that we can kind of highlight here for the recording.
And I think we'll, if people have final questions, I would say get them into the question and answer section now rather than the chat if you're able to. I think we've seen some good questions, a lot of really good questions. We've some of this will be rehashing for everybody, but we've had a lot of questions about the double as singles. And again, I think Kaylee mentioned it. Shamir or Sammy may have mentioned it as well. When we talk through the double as single offerings, the important thing to note is that a lot of the offerings where they will be, we will be posting that ahead of time. So before you go into selection, and this is just good practice across the board, regardless of double as singles or whether or not you have a roommate group or whomever you are and whatever you're looking for, you want to go ahead and check the website and just make sure you're up to date on the residence halls that are there for you and what the options are going to be. If you're looking for a particular style, be that a suite style, and you'll know that's Cassell, or if you're a sophomore looking for the hotel suite style on East Campus, right? You'll be able to look through those things ahead of time. Similarly, double as single, where the buyouts are offered, that will be updated on our website. So you're not having to click through buildings and lose time during selection, trying to figure out where exactly we're offering them. We're going to be pretty transparent about that. I know some folks had some good questions, given that these are all returner applications, right? And we're talking to a group of you that will be returning to campus, hopefully with us next fall. Some of you have seen the offers that have come out this semester for double as single buyouts. So there have been some good questions about, well, where exactly will they be? I called a few weeks ago and thought they would be on East Campus, or we're told that they would be on East Campus. Things will shift and change as we go towards room selection. And I know that seems like just around the corner. For us, it does too. But there's a lot of time actually in between there where Kaylee, Delilah, and the whole team are looking at our anticipated reapplication numbers, again, to really offer the most comprehensive version of double as singles, of suite style rooms between sophomores and upper division. And so a lot of that shifts and changes in real time as we get closer towards the end of next month. So please do just remember, if you're a parent or a family member, remind your student. If you're a student, you already know our website. You've been there many, many times. Know we're going to go ahead of time just to check. And again, it won't be, it's not going to be the morning of, but we'll try and update things kind of as we move towards the room selection period. And you'll see things start populating there. And I know we mentioned, I think Shamira mentioned McDowell and Leonard. Those are our primary target points right now for some of those double as single offers, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we don't add in some more later. So just stay up to date with what's going on and what we're doing, and you may see things pop up. The other way I would say this for everybody, and this is just a general rule that I always like to kind of remind folks of, especially if you are a first year going into reapplication for the first time, remember that at any given moment during room selection, stay in contact with our office if you have questions. Sam and Lauren do a really great job, along with our office assistants, our student staff, getting folks some answers during selection, which can be a really stressful time. I would just remind everybody that there always comes a time where on like the first day, Kaylee will know better than I, but there's always a period where all of a sudden we get a huge influx. It's like the second or third wave of like time slots opening up where things fill up really quickly because folks are grabbing a space and making sure that they have it, that then is then released a little bit later. And again, we went through our cancellation timeline to kind of outline why we have that in place so that folks aren't holding spaces for, weeks at a time. But if ever there's a moment where there's a building that you don't want, or a building that you want that isn't available, we said it earlier, go find your next tier of building and room and select it. But then follow back up to see if there's a particular building or thing that you wanted. Did that open up after, say, the first weekend of returner selection? Because I think we see every year, and I go through this every year. I talk to a lot of parents and families and a lot of students in the middle of the summer where we will often hear, well, I really wanted to live on campus, but there just wasn't anything available. And I will always tell students within literally like that first weekend, we leave on a Friday and things might be filled. By the time Monday hits, things have opened back up. And we have so many opportunities for students to be back on campus. It might not be your first choice, but your second choice is often right there for you. You just might have to wait, half a day or a day or something to make sure that happens. So don't disengage with the process if you don't get what you want immediately. Select a space, hold something for yourself, and then come back to us and ask questions if you want to know more about what's available. And that goes for doubles as singles too. Again, there aren't a lot of them. We think that there will be a lot of interest based on what we did this spring, but we do know that there will be things that shift and change over time in real time. So as you approach your room selection, have a plan, and then ultimately be willing to call us. And then the last thing is come on through and come back if there's something that you really wanted that you didn't get, just to check to see what's available.
There's a couple questions I want to highlight here just out loud. So options for students that might be studying abroad in the fall semester. So if you are 100% committed to a study abroad program, you do not need to apply because obviously you will be abroad in the fall. If you are still kind of on the fence, if your application is still being processed, I do recommend you apply and submit an application in case for whatever reason something falls through with your plans. So you do have a backup option, and you can always go ahead and cancel the application. You don't need to select a space or anything like that, but you can cancel the application once you get your kind of program participation confirmed. And students that are studying abroad in the fall, we work very closely with the study abroad office to make sure we understand who is coming back in the spring so we can communicate with you in the fall semester. We typically have what is called our spring only application open in October, that we will let you know when it is open so you can apply for housing. You can get it in and we can assign you a space. Typically it's right before Thanksgiving break on main campus. So you'll kind of have a place to live when you do come back in the spring. And then again, if you are a student that's studying abroad in the spring semester of 2026, that is listed a part of our exemption. So if you want to live on campus for the one semester and then go abroad in the spring, you should complete the application because you do need a space for the fall. So just want to highlight that question. I want to also answer the question, can anyone in the roommate group select the housing, not just the one who created it? Exactly. So the student that has the earliest time slot, whether or not you are quote unquote the group leader or the person that created the group, can select the space. So once you are a part of that roommate group, you're able to select for the remainder of your roommates that are in the group if your time slot happens to be first. I also know there is a couple questions about finding the time slot. So time slots are readily available right after you submit the application. So once you complete the application, it's actually located on the application status page, or if you do navigate to the home page of your housing portal, it should also appear there as well. And then the availability of those rooms will become open once our room selection process does open. So even if your time slot isn't until later in the week or the following week, you'll be able to kind of track the different availabilities throughout the process. You just won't be able to kind of jump ahead to the actual selecting portion of that. Just quickly trying to look. If you start to see matches, on your housing portal. So if you're still looking for a roommate and you completed the application, you can already start roommate matching now and start messaging people through the housing portal, kind of viewing any of the students that have completed the application. Typically, most students have completed the application so far. So you might have a couple of more stragglers coming in over the next couple of weeks before selection. But for the most part, the bulk of your kind of of different options are going to be available right now. So you can kind of go in and see who you're most compatible with, or even just start matching with people in general. And I know there's some questions about how you can get in contact with us later. Just wanted to kind of put our last information on the screen here. So again, you can always email us at housinginamerican.edu. We're happy to have your email and we will respond to it in any time during the day. You can also give us a call between 9 and 5 at 202-885-3370. And again, our live chat, if you have a quick question, is available Monday through Friday, 1 through 4 p.m. Eastern time. And those chat hours will be extended during our selection period if students have quick questions that you just need to kind of get answered during that time. Instead of walking all the way to our office, you can just jump on the chat quickly and get those answered. And then again, because we will be updating a lot of information on the website, especially surrounding classification placement and those double S single placements, do want to highlight, keep an eye on our website and specifically the reapplication page, just to make sure that you have all that information ready to go. And this recording will be made available in the coming days. Again, we'll post it on the website and have that available on the Division of Student Affairs YouTube channel. quick question about LLCs. I know we have a few minutes left. Talk about LLCs for sophomores or where to find the information. So on our website, we do have a list of kind of different living learning communities that are available for sophomores. So this upcoming year, in addition to our kind of 3 affinity housing communities, we do have Globe, which is a new cultural exploration community. We have the AU Compass, which is a sophomore living learning community that's run through one of our partners at the undergraduate education office. And then we do also have the DC Impact and Honors community. So if you were a student that was either a DC Impact Scholar or an honors student, you can also opt into those living learning communities as well. And those are all located in Leonard Hall this year, the 3 living learning communities. And you can opt in to either Globe or AU Compass. You can show your interest on our housing application. And then if you're interested in the honors or DC Impact Scholars, you can reach out to the community leadership that exists now for you if you're interested in learning more. And then really quickly, while we just have one, oh, do you have something, a question?
Well, I clicked, so this is a faux pas for a webinar, but I did click the answer live button instead of the answer that I was typing. Someone asked a great question about fire alarms in first year buildings. Don't want to end on that note. So Kaylee, have a question ready for after me. But I will just say that, like, generally speaking, we work directly in housing and residence life with our partners in campus safety and in facilities management. So you'll see emails coming from housing and residence life every time there's a fire alarm. That's not just in first year buildings, that's in every building on campus. For those of you who live in the Letts Anderson Centennial building, you'll know that those buildings by now are kind of all linked together from a fire safety perspective. That is by design. And you'll also know that the majority of our alarms this year have been due to burnt food rather than someone pulling a fire alarm or doing what we call a malicious pull. But we have follow-up for either of those instances. And what I would say to everybody on the call is certainly our upper division buildings and our sophomore buildings, I think we see less fire alarms per building than the first year. It's kind of common sense. I will also plug, in the same moment, we have a great series on cooking within the residence halls, because it takes a little while in the first year halls for that to really make an impact. By the sophomore year, I think people get it. But yeah, we hear you. I mean, our offices are in Anderson, so we know that the fire alarm struggle is real, but the majority of our alarms this year have really been the result of something actually burning in the hall. So we want them to trigger in the right way. And we follow up with the partners that kind of manage those systems throughout. So hang in there, but subscribe to our social media and watch some of those cooking videos, because there's some great stuff. Kaylee and Shamira do some great cooking with residence hall facility.
And one question, if you're still sticking around, so if you are a person that is in a 6-person roommate group, and you don't get one of the 3-bedroom suites in Cassell, essentially the person with the earliest time slot would go to your Plan B option. It sounds like if you're looking at East Campus, I would recommend putting yourself in just kind of 3 rooms right next to each other. One of the great things about our housing selection process is that you can see a floor plan, so you can actually pick rooms that are really close by. So even if you don't get Cassell, you can still, live on the same floor, live in the same area, and maybe use the floor lounge instead. Any other questions we want to answer? Again, if you have any kind of lasting questions, feel free to contact us, email us, call us, use the chat during the week. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Again, we will have this webinar recording available on the YouTube shortly. So if you need a recap of anything, please feel free to watch it. And thank you so much for joining, and have a great evening. Thank you.